Maya Carter sat at the long glass table, her notepad resting on her lap. Her palms felt damp, and she tried to steady her breathing. The office lights above buzzed faintly, and the polished room was filled with the sound of shuffling papers and clicking pens. It was the weekly meeting, and as usual, Jason Reed stood at the front, confident, smug, and all too aware of the power he held. "All right, team," Jason said, his voice sharp as he adjusted his tie. "Let's hear some new ideas." Maya hesitated but forced herself to speak. She had worked on her proposal for weeks, staying late at night to perfect every detail. This was her chance. Clearing her throat, she said softly, "I was thinking, if we updated our online system, we could make it easier for clients to track their progress. It would reduce customer complaints and save us hours of manual work each week." Her words hung in the air. For a moment, there was silence. Jason looked at her, then let out a laugh, a cruel, mocking laugh that echoed through the room. "Really, Maya? That's your big idea?" He turned to the others, shaking his head. "An app that tracks progress? Groundbreaking. Next, you'll tell us we should hand out free coffee in the lobby." A few people chuckled nervously, though most just lowered their eyes. Maya's face burned. She wanted to sink into her chair, disappear from the polished floor that reflected every inch of her humiliation. Jason went on, waving her suggestion away as if it were nothing. "Let's get serious here. We need ideas that actually matter." Maya pressed her lips together, trying to keep her expression neutral. But her chest felt tight. From the corner of the room, she heard it. A whisper. Two co-workers leaning close, pretending not to be heard. "She'll never be anything more than a clerk," one said. The other snorted in agreement. The words cut deeper than Jason's laughter. They carried the weight of every dismissal, every doubt she had endured for years. She remembered being told by her parents that she wasn't as clever as her brother, being laughed at in school for speaking too softly, being overlooked at every job because someone else always seemed more confident. Her fingers curled around her pen so tightly it almost snapped. She kept her head down, letting Jason move on to another person's idea, pretending not to notice her silence. But inside, something was shifting. The sting of humiliation was still sharp, but beneath it, a new thought flickered. She was tired of this, tired of being the quiet one in the corner, tired of being treated as though she didn't matter. Her heart pounded as she whispered to herself, words no one else could hear. "One day," she thought, her eyes fixed on the table, "they'll regret ever underestimating me." And for the first time in a long while, she believed it. A working-class family, where she was always overlooked compared to her younger brother, Eric, the golden child. That was the world Maya Carter grew up in. Their small house smelled of fried onions and old carpets, and the walls carried the weight of her parents' voices, voices that always seemed louder for Eric and quieter for her. Eric was the star. He scored the highest grades in school, captained the debate team, and somehow always managed to impress relatives at family dinners. Whenever the neighbors dropped by, her parents would beam with pride, saying, "Eric is going to do great things." Then they would glance at Maya, give a small smile, and add, "Maya helps around the house." It wasn't that Maya didn't try. She studied hard, sometimes even harder than Eric, but her efforts never seemed to matter. If she got a B on a test, her father would sigh, "Eric managed an A, didn't he? Why can't you push a little harder?" If she suggested a new hobby, her mother would shake her head saying, "You're not really the ambitious type, Maya. Best to keep things simple." The message was clear. Eric was meant to shine, and Maya was meant to stay in the shadows. Years later, that same feeling clung to her like a second skin. Now at 27, Maya worked as an assistant in a company where her job title sounded better than it felt. Despite finishing her degree, she was stuck doing endless tasks, scheduling meetings, fetching coffee, taking notes. The kind of work no one noticed unless it was done wrong. She came in early, stayed late, and gave her best, but it never felt enough. When her boss, Jason Reed, walked into a room, it was like he carried the air with him. Arrogant, sharp-tongued, and always ready with a sarcastic remark, he had a way of making Maya feel small. He would look at her work, scoff, and say, "This is what you're proud of." He reminded her so much of her parents' dismissive tone that sometimes she wondered if he enjoyed it. Still, Maya endured. Because leaving wasn't easy. Jobs weren't falling from the sky, and she needed money to pay rent, to keep moving forward. even if forward felt like standing still. Her best friend, Naomi, was the one bright spot. Naomi saw what Maya couldn't see in herself. "You're smarter than half the people in that office," Naomi would say firmly. "You just let them walk over you. You've got ideas, Maya. You've got heart. That's more than Jason will ever have." Maya appreciated Naomi's words, but they often felt like distant stars, beautiful, but too far to reach. Deep down, she couldn't shake the voice of her childhood, whispering that she wasn't enough. Every family dinner was a reminder. Eric would arrive in his polished suit, sliding into his chair with a grin that said he belonged everywhere he went. Their parents would pepper him with questions about his job, his projects, his plans. When Maya tried to join in, Eric would give her that sideways smile, charming to others, but to her it felt condescending. "So Maya," he would say, his tone just light enough to sting, "still making coffee for Jason Reed? At least you're good at keeping people organized." Their parents laughed. Maya forced a smile. It was the same pattern over and over. At work, Jason dismissed her. At home, Eric mocked her. And in both worlds, Maya's voice seemed to vanish. Yet inside, something refused to die completely. A flicker. A need. She didn't just want money. She didn't just want a paycheck at the end of the month. She wanted respect. She wanted people to look at her and see more than a clerk, more than a helper, more than a shadow. She wanted to prove, to Jason, to Eric, to her parents, and maybe even to herself, that she was capable of something greater. But for now, she remained quiet, her dreams folded neatly and hidden away, waiting for the moment she would finally let them unfold. Jason humiliates Maya during a board meeting, steals her idea and takes full credit. The room was packed with executives, their eyes fixed on the screen as Jason clicked to the next slide. Maya sat at the far end of the table, her stomach in knots. She had spent nights working on the proposal, every line, every number, every design. It was supposed to be her chance to finally be noticed. But there was Jason, standing tall at the front, presenting her work as though it had sprung from his mind. "This idea," Jason said confidently, pointing at the chart Maya had prepared, "will reduce costs by 20% while improving customer satisfaction. It's the kind of innovation this company needs. I believe it shows my commitment to pushing us forward." Her chest tightened. My commitment? He hadn't even changed a word. Every graph, every suggestion hers. Yet he spoke smoothly, proudly, as if he'd stayed up all night to create it. The executives nodded, impressed. One of them even clapped. "Brilliant work, Jason. This is the direction we've been looking for." Maya's throat went dry. She wanted to speak, to stand up and say, "It's mine." But when Jason glanced at her with that smug smile, her courage froze. If she spoke up, they might think she was lying. Worse, they might label her as difficult, someone who couldn't work in a team. She stayed quiet. After the meeting, Jason leaned close as people left the room. "Nice work, Maya," he whispered, his voice low enough only for her to hear. "But remember, you're here to support me, not compete with me. That's why you're an assistant, and I'm the manager." Her face burned. She clenched her fists but forced a tight smile, pretending his words didn't crush her. Later that evening, when the office was quiet, she stayed behind. She opened her emails, scrolling back to the drafts she had sent Jason last week. There it was, her original document, her notes, her charts, even her suggestions written in her style. The proof sat right there on the screen. Her heart raced. She had evidence. If she wanted to, she could show it to HR, to the directors, to anyone. But then the fear came. What if they didn't believe her? What if Jason twisted the story and made her look like the problem? She had seen it happen before. People who complained too much didn't last long in the company. She closed the laptop slowly, her shoulders heavy. The truth was there, but she couldn't use it. Not yet. That night at home, things got worse. Eric was sitting at the kitchen table, eating takeout and scrolling through his phone when she walked in. He glanced up and smirked. "Rough day at the office?" Maya sat down with a sigh, too tired to fight. But Eric pressed on. "Let me guess. You had a great idea, but someone else took it? That's what happens, Maya. You don't fight for yourself. You just let people walk all over you." The words hit her like stones. She already felt bruised from Jason's betrayal. And now Eric's voice drove the wound deeper. Tears burned her eyes, but she turned away so he wouldn't see. She went to her room, shut the door, and finally let herself break down. She cried until her pillow was damp, the same old thoughts circling her head. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'll never be enough. But then, as the tears slowed, another thought broke through. Jason had stolen her idea. But what if she took it back? Not by fighting him at work, but by building it herself. What if she turned it into something bigger, something real? Her heart pounded with a strange mix of fear and excitement. For the first time, she wasn't thinking about surviving. She was thinking about creating. She sat up, grabbed her notebook, and began to write. Scribbles at first, messy sketches of an idea she knew could change things. It was the same project Jason had claimed, but this time it would be hers, and no one could laugh it out of her hands. In that quiet room, Maya made a silent promise. She would no longer stay invisible. She would no longer stay silent. This was the start of something new. Maya secretly builds her project, juggling long nights, failures, and self-doubt. Every evening, after work, she dragged herself home, dropped her bag on the chair, and pulled out her laptop. Her tiny apartment became her office. Empty coffee cups gathered on the table, and papers with messy notes covered the floor. She worked in silence, sometimes until 2 or 3 in the morning, her eyes heavy, her back aching. Some nights, the ideas flowed, and she felt hope. Other nights, nothing seemed to work. The app would crash, the numbers wouldn't add up, and she would bury her face in her hands, fighting tears. Maybe I'm fooling myself, she whispered once, staring at the blinking cursor on the screen. But each morning, she forced herself up, put on her plain work clothes, and went back to the office as though nothing had changed. Jason was still the same, smirking, dismissing her, calling her assistant, like it was her only identity. He kept taking credit for small improvements she made, and she swallowed her anger, telling herself she needed to hold on until her own idea was ready. At home, things weren't easier. One Sunday, the family gathered for dinner. Eric announced he had been promoted to senior manager at his firm. Their parents clapped, beaming with pride. "That's our boy," their father said. "We always knew you'd rise to the top." Maya sat quietly, picking at her food. She wanted to say, "I'm working on something too. Something important." But when she opened her mouth, Eric cut in with a grin. "What about you, Maya? Still typing memos for Jason?" He laughed, and her parents chuckled along. Her chest ached, but she stayed silent. She wasn't ready to tell them about her project. Not yet. The only person who knew was Naomi. When Maya finally confessed, Naomi's eyes lit up. "Maya, this is amazing. You're actually building something. You can't keep it hidden forever." "I'm not ready," Maya said quickly. "What if people laugh? What if it fails?" Naomi shook her head. "You're scared of what people think because they've always made you feel small. But this is different. There's a startup pitch competition coming next month. Enter it. Show them what you can do." Maya's stomach tightened. A competition meant standing on a stage, speaking in front of strangers, risking rejection in public. "I can't," she whispered. "I'll embarrass myself." Naomi leaned forward. "You've already survived worse. You've been embarrassed at work, ignored at home, laughed at by people who don't even know your worth. What's the worst that could happen? They laugh again? You've heard it all before." Maya wanted to believe her, but fear kept her chained. She promised she would think about it, though deep down, the thought both terrified and excited her. Days later, her worst nightmare came true. She was working late at the office, her laptop open, when Jason walked in unexpectedly. She quickly tried to close the screen, but he was faster. He leaned over and saw the project. His eyes narrowed. Well, he said, smirking. "Looks like my little assistant thinks she's an entrepreneur." "It's my personal project," Maya said quietly, her voice trembling. Jason straightened, his smile sharp. "Do you have any idea how this looks? If word gets out, it'll seem like you're using company resources for your own gain. That could ruin you." Her hands went cold. I'm doing this on my own time. It has nothing to do with work." Jason leaned closer, his tone dark. "Listen carefully. You're nothing without this job. If you keep working on this project, I'll make sure you're blacklisted. No company will touch you. You'll be finished before you even start." Maya froze. She couldn't breathe. His words wrapped around her like chains. That night, she sat in her room, staring at her laptop. Jason's threat echoed in her mind. She thought about closing it forever, deleting her files, giving up before she lost everything. Maybe he was right. Maybe she was nothing without the job. Her hands hovered over the keyboard. She almost pressed delete. The next morning, Naomi came over and found her staring at the blank screen. "What happened?" she asked. When Maya told her everything, Naomi's face hardened. "He's scared. That's why he threatened you. He knows you've got something good. But what if he ruins me?" Maya whispered. "What if I lose everything?" Naomi grabbed her shoulders. "Maya, they've already written you off. Jason, your family, everyone. They already decided you're not enough. So what do you really have to lose? Prove them wrong." Maya blinked, her throat tight. Naomi's words sank deep, breaking through the fear. For the first time, she realized Naomi was right. She had been living like she had something to lose, when in truth, everyone around her already treated her as if she was nothing. Her hands stopped shaking. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and whispered, "Then I'll prove them wrong." And this time she meant it. Maya entered the pitch competition with her heart racing. The room was filled with bright lights, a large stage, and rows of judges seated in front with sharp eyes and pens ready. She clutched her folder tightly, feeling the weight of every late night, every failure, and every doubt she had pushed through. She told herself over and over, "I belong here. I have a voice. I deserve this chance." But when she looked at the list of participants, her blood ran cold. Jason Reed. He was here too. Her fear turned into anger when she saw his slides appear on the screen. He was presenting her stolen concept. The same design, the same words, even the same graph she had spent weeks perfecting. Jason was standing tall, smiling confidently as if he owned it. "This," Jason declared, "is my vision. A tool that will revolutionize how companies handle their clients. Simple, smart, and efficient." The judges nodded, impressed. One leaned forward and said, "This is exactly the kind of solution we're looking for." Maya's chest tightened. For a moment, she thought about running away. Jason was experienced, smooth, and confident. Compared to him, she felt small. But then Naomi's words rang in her head. "They've already written you off. You've got nothing to lose by proving them wrong." When it was her turn, she walked onto the stage with trembling hands, but steady steps. Jason smirked at her as she passed, whispering, "Careful, Maya. Don't embarrass yourself." She lifted her chin. "Watch me." Standing under the spotlight, she took a deep breath and began. "Good evening. My name is Maya Carter, and I want to show you a vision that comes from years of watching people struggle with outdated systems. This project isn't just an idea. It's personal." Her voice wavered at first, but then it grew stronger. Slide after slide, she explained her concept with passion, breaking down how it worked, why it mattered, and how it would change things for the better. Unlike Jason's smooth, rehearsed tone, Maya's words carried heart. The judges leaned in, listening closely. Jason interrupted with a laugh. "Excuse me, judges, but this sounds strangely familiar. Doesn't it look like the same project I just presented?" Maybe my assistant here couldn't think of anything original. A murmur rippled through the audience. Maya's pulse quickened, but she didn't back down. She clicked to the next slide, an email chain. "This is the difference between us," she said firmly. "I don't just claim ideas. I create them." The screen showed dated drafts, timestamps, and her original notes. Months of work saved on her computer. Then came her emails to Jason, where she had first shared her designs and suggestions. Gasps filled the room. One judge's eyes widened. "So you're saying?" "Yes," Maya said, her voice clear. "Jason took my idea. He stole it and presented it as his own. But I won't stay silent anymore. This is my work, my vision, and my future." The room exploded with whispers. Jason's smile vanished. His face turned red as the judges turned their sharp eyes on him. "Mr. Reed," one judge said coldly, "do you have an explanation for this?" Jason stammered, his confidence cracking. I was just helping refine her idea. She must have misunderstood." But no one was convinced. The evidence was clear. The arrogance that once made Jason untouchable now left him exposed. His reputation shattered in front of everyone. Maya stood tall, her heart pounding. For years she had been silenced, overlooked, dismissed. Now the truth was out. After a tense pause, the lead judge leaned forward. "Miss Carter, Your presentation was not only innovative but also deeply compelling. We believe your vision has great potential. Congratulations. You are the winner of this competition." Applause erupted. Naomi jumped to her feet, cheering loudly from the crowd. Maya felt tears sting her eyes, but this time they weren't from pain. They were from relief, pride, and a kind of joy she had never known before. Jason lowered his head, humiliated, as people whispered about him. He had built his career on stealing credit, but now, in front of everyone, he was nothing more than a fraud. Maya stepped off the stage with her head high. She had done it. She had proven them wrong. For the first time in her life, she wasn't invisible. She was seen, she was heard, and she was victorious. Maya launches her startup and begins to thrive. With the funding she won from the competition, she finally had the resources to bring her idea to life. Her small apartment soon transformed into a buzzing office space. She hired a few passionate people who believed in her vision, and together they worked late nights filled with laughter, energy, and determination. Unlike the office where she had once felt invisible, this new space was different. Here, every voice mattered. Every idea was respected. Her app quickly gained attention. Clients loved how easy it was to use, and soon word spread. Articles appeared online about the young woman shaking up the industry. Each time she saw her name in print, she felt both proud and stunned. For years, she had been told she wasn't enough. Now people finally saw her worth. Meanwhile, Jason's life crumbled. After the competition scandal, his reputation was ruined. The company let him go, and no one wanted to hire him. His arrogance had burned too many bridges. One afternoon, as Maya sat at her new office desk, reviewing applications for open positions, her eyes froze on a familiar name. Jason Reed. He had applied for a manager role at her startup. Maya almost laughed in disbelief. The man who once told her she was nothing without him was now asking for a chance to work under her. She called her team into the room and held up the application. "This," she said calmly, "is a reminder of why we do things differently. Respect isn't a gift, it's something you earn. And in this company, we'll never silence people the way I was silenced." She placed Jason's application in the rejection pile without a second thought. At home, the news of her success reached her family. For years, they had celebrated Eric's achievements while ignoring hers. But now they couldn't ignore what the world was praising. One Sunday dinner, her father finally turned to her and said, "Maya, we're proud of you." Her mother nodded, smiling awkwardly, and Eric gave a stiff clap on her shoulder. "Guess you surprised us all," he muttered. Maya looked at them, calm and steady. She didn't gloat. She didn't rub it in. Instead, she said softly, "Respect is earned, and I earned mine without your approval." Her words hung in the air, and for the first time, her family was silent. Not because they dismissed her, but because they finally understood. Back at her company, Maya built the kind of workplace she had always dreamed of. She hired people from different backgrounds, people with fresh ideas, people who had often been ignored like she once was. In meetings, she made sure everyone had a voice. No idea was laughed at. No one was made to feel small. Standing in her bright new office one evening, she looked at her growing team and felt a deep sense of peace. She had turned her pain into power, her silence into strength. Maya Carter was no longer the overlooked assistant. She was the leader. The kind of leader who would never let anyone else be silenced the way she had been. Maya stands in her office, now the boss. The sun was setting, painting the glass windows in shades of gold and orange. She stood tall, her hands resting on the edge of her desk, looking out at the city below. The office around her buzzed with quiet energy, her team finishing up the day, voices filled with respect and collaboration. She took a slow breath. This space, this moment felt unreal. Not long ago, she had been the one running errands, bringing coffee, and being told her ideas didn't matter. She remembered sitting in dark corners of meeting rooms, listening to Jason take credit for her work. She remembered her family dismissing her dreams as if they were nothing. Now everything was different. She closed her eyes for a moment and listened to the echoes of the past, the words that once cut so deep. "You're not good enough. Don't embarrass yourself. Stay in your place." But as she opened her eyes again, those whispers faded into silence. They no longer had power over her. Her own voice rose instead, calm and strong. "I was always enough. They just couldn't see it." A soft smile touched her lips. She wasn't smiling out of pride or revenge. She was smiling because she finally believed in herself. Behind her, the door opened, and one of her team members peeked in. "Maya, we're ready to show you the new demo," they said. She turned and nodded. "I'll be there in a minute." As the door closed again, she glanced once more at the skyline. The world was wide, and her journey was only beginning. Maya straightened her shoulders and walked toward her team. She didn't need applause from her family. She didn't need validation from people who once tried to silence her. She had built her own path, her own voice, her own power. Justice had come quietly, not with loud revenge, but with growth, success, and self-respect. And that was enough. Maya Carter wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving, leading with strength, empathy, and vision. And as she stepped into the room where her team waited, she carried with her the unshakable truth that had taken years to learn. She had always been enough. Sparkles. Hey friends, thanks for watching till the end. Sparkling heart, don't forget to hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more amazing stories. See you in the next one. Waving hand.